Greetings. In this video I'm going to walk you through the process of creating a web application. This is chapter 8 in the text. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so in chapter 8 they cover a bunch of different things, but the stuff we're primarily concerned with are two different things. What we want to do first is to create a template for our web pages. So we only have to mess with a header file, a footer file, and then the changeable content. We'll go over that in a moment. The second thing we want to do is to be able to render and process our forms using the same script. So here's how you do all that. Alright, the first thing we need to do is take a look at our project here. I've created a project called Chapter 8 and I've created two files. The first one is a login file. The second one is a register page. You'll notice at this point in Chapter 8 that I went ahead and changed the extension from HTML to PHP on all of my files. You no longer need the HTML extension because what we're going to be doing is creating our forms and processing them in the same file. So again, you'll see that from here forward we no longer use PHP as our extension. Alright. These files of login and register are identical except for the form in the heading on the top. So I have all of this stuff that is basically duplicated. Everything from my doc type all the way down to my heading here, and then after the form, the closing body and closing HTML tags, they're the same on both files. So what we typically do with PHP is any kind of website that we build, the headings, the footers, and any other content that really doesn't change, what we'll do is we'll stick these in what are called templates. And what a template does is it just contains, usually it's a header and a footer, and then sometimes you'll have other templates for other sections, but it just contains the information that really doesn't change. And then what we do is we take the stuff that does change, or what's called changeable content, and we actually only leave that on each individual page, and then we import the headings, the header, and the footer, or in other words, the sections of the page that don't change. So let me show you how to do this. Alright, so here's where we're at. We have two different files. We have login and register. And again, they're pretty much identical except for the stuff here in the middle. Okay, the form and the greeting here. So here's what we need to do. We need to break this up. Here's how you do it. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder. So you can just right click on where it says source files underneath your project here. I'm going to click on new, and I'm going to click on other. I'm going to click on other again, and then I'm going to click folder, and then I'm going to click next. I'm going to call this folder templates, and then I'm going to click finish. Alright, so I have a templates folder, and I'm going to create two files here, two PHP files. So I'm going to right click on the templates folder, I'm going to click new, I'm going to click PHP file, I'm going to call it header, then I'm going to create another one, same steps as before, and I'm going to call this one footer. Okay. So right now I have two files. I have a login, or four files total. I have a login, a register page, and then I have a templates folder, and then a footer and a header page. Alright. So here's what I'm going to do. First one I'm going to start chopping up is this login page. So I'm going to click on login, and what I'm going to do is after the opening body tag, I'm going to type in an HTML comment, and I'm going to say, I'm going to just create, the only thing I'm going to put in is begin changeable content. After the closing form tag, I'm going to type in another comment, and I'm going to say and changeable content. Okay. Now, the stuff on from the top, from the doc type, all the way down to just after, literally just this, right after the close content comment, I'm going to select all the code. I'm going to cut the code, and then I'm going to go to my header file, and I'm going to paste the code. Now, this is something that's very, 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 very important. If you don't do this just right, your code will not render properly, or probably at all. And that is, you need to make sure that you don't have any spaces of any type, any lines, any spaces, anything like that, from the very beginning of the file to the opening of the doc type tag. And then, right after it says begin changeable content, just after the closing arrow on the end of the comment, you want to make sure that you do not have any lines at all after that point. Okay. This is a big problem that a lot of people have, is that they go, well, it's not rendering properly. I can't pull in, I can't link to these files, I can't link to the templates, and it doesn't render. You have to make sure that you don't have any spaces around either of those sections. Alright, I'm going to go back to that login page, and then I'm going to select the code right from where the unchangeable content comment is, all the way down to the closing HTML tag, and I'm going to cut this, and then I'm going to paste it in my footer. Okay. Again, very important that we have no spaces at all between where it says changeable content and after the closing HTML tag. Can't have any spaces, just like with the footer, or the header, sorry. Okay, so right now with my login page, all you see here is this changeable content here, and that's fine. One of the things you can do is you can right click and then click on format and clean up the code a little bit. Okay. Alright, so right now if I go to render this login page, well, with HTML5 it'll actually probably be okay, which is kind of weird, but yeah, because it can actually, with new web browsers, you can actually render without having all that stuff in, although it is important to have your web pages complete. On an older web browser that wouldn't have worked, it wouldn't have rendered, but anyways, it did there. So what we have right now is we just have our HT2 or H2 sized headings and our form in here. What we need to do is we need to include the templates. So here's how you do it. First, right at the top of the file, no spaces before this at all, no white space at all. You do an open PHP tag. You do another empty line, and then a closing PHP tag. Okay, no spaces. Let's go ahead and do a comment, and I'm going to say include the header. Then I'm going to run a built-in function called include, and then a parent, open quote, single quote, templates. That's the folder we just made. Header.php, and then close quote, close parent, semicolon. So now we should have our header set up, and then I'm going to copy the code that I just created, and I'm going to paste it right after form. You can do it on the next line down if you want. It doesn't matter too much here. And then instead of header, I'm going to say footer. Alright, now I'm going to save my file, and I'm going to refresh my page. And here's what I should see. I should see that I have a title up here in the top called login. And if I view my page source, you should see where that I have a comment here says begin changeable content and end changeable content. Now, the way that this renders, it is kind of ugly, and we could change that up later on, maybe in an advanced course, kind of clean up the way that the code renders. But for right now, we don't have a whole lot of time to do that, and it can be fairly complicated, so we're not going to mess with that. Okay, now, so that's our login page. Well, right now we just have a header and a footer built, but we still need to do some modification to actually make sure that the templates are working properly. And one of the things that we're doing when we're using an external file is we want to use what's called a constant. Well, you don't have to, but it's something that's in your text, and I actually wanted you to do as part of your assignment. So we're going to use a constant. We're going to use a constant to define the title of the specific page that we're on. So here's how you do it. Right underneath where it says include the header, I'm in the login page, I'm going to say that we want to go ahead and set up my page here. And I'm going to define my title. So I'm going to say define title, and this is all uppercase because it's a constant. I'm going to call this one login. Okay. I'm going to say define title of page. There we go. Alright, so the title of this page is called login. Okay. And then I'm going to go to my header file. And right here inside of my title tags, I need to go ahead and render this. So right after the beginning of your title tag, right after that closing arrow on the where it says title in your opening title tag, no spaces. Right after that, you open up a PHP tag. That was weird. I'm not sure what I did there. Let's go back. And then you do the closing title tag just before the you do the closing PHP tag, sorry, just before the beginning of the closing title tag. No spaces. Can't have any spaces. If you do, it won't work properly. You'll have extra spaces in your title, and we don't want that. Okay, now what we need to do is give yourself a couple of empty lines here. And then we want to go ahead and check to see if the title is defined, and if it is, using our control structures that we learned in Chapter 7, we're going to print out whatever the title is that was set in the login page. If not, we'll just, in this case, we're just going to print out a title, something like, I don't know, we'll just, well, I'll think of something here. Alright, anyways, we're going to print out a title that's something else. So, we're going to say if defined, which is another built-in function, so we're looking to see if something's defined. Title, again, it's a constant, so it's all uppercase, there's no $sign. If our title's defined, I want you to print, and just print out a string called title, just like that. Okay, it's a constant, so it doesn't have to have any quotes around it or anything like that. If the title's not defined, then we're going to print something else. We'll just print I'm going to say title was not defined. I'm so creative. Because the reason why I'm struggling with that a little bit is this site has no name, or there's no product or anything. It's just a login page and a register page for who knows what. Okay. Okay. And that's it. So all you need to do is check to see if your title is defined. If it is, print it out. Else, print out title is not defined. Okay. Looking at my login page, my title is defined. The title is login. So if all goes well, my login page should say this. It should just say login at the top, and for some reason it didn't. Oh, right. Yeah, because I haven't turned that on yet. Okay. What you'll need to do in your login page for now is, because we don't have output buffering turned on just yet, I haven't showed you how to do that yet. What we'll need to do is take this define title of page here and cut my code and move it up just as the first thing that I'm doing in the script. And actually I'll show you why that's important here in just a second and why we had to make that change. Let's go ahead and run again. And you should see that it says login. Okay. Alright, so that's how you have a title for each page. Okay, now here's one of the things that you'll need to make sure that you do. We're getting ready to start having our page both print the form and process it. And in order to do that, what we need to do is turn on what's called output buffering. And that is on, let's see what page that's on here. That is on page 222. Now, here's the thing. Your text starts your output buffering after we start talking about processing your scripts and all that when using the same file. But I like to do it a little bit differently. I like to, when I'm teaching this, I like to turn on the output buffering before I run you guys through the rest of the process of processing your script and showing it in the same file. And the reason why is this. When we start doing a lot of things like breaking up into templates and things like that, or using external files, if we don't turn on that output buffering, anything that we process in the script is processed immediately. And this is a problem because you might have some calculations and things like that, or maybe even some, like defining your title, for example, that, you know, instead of, we want to include our header and maybe define our title, but we might not necessarily want them in the exact order they're processed, because it might not flow well with the coding, or maybe I want to do several different checks before I process anything. There are a lot of different reasons to turn on output buffering. So again, the author kind of put this towards the end of the chapter. I don't like that. I think it should have been towards the beginning of the chapter. But anyways, it's all preference. Here's the point. We need to go ahead and turn on output buffering. That's on page 222. That's where they start. And next week, when you start working with sessions and things like that, you'll definitely need to turn that on right away before you do anything. So here's some good practice. To turn on output buffering, all you need to do is go into header.php. Okay. Up at the very top, go ahead and give yourself a new line here between doc type and HTML. Very first thing you do, no spaces between the beginning of the file and this open PHP tag, and then do a close PHP tag a couple lines down, and then right after that closing PHP tag you type in your doc type. Okay, that's where so no spaces between that closing PHP tag and the beginning of the doc type tag. If you do have any spaces there, this will not work properly, will not render properly. Okay. Alright, so we're going to turn our output buffering on. And what output buffering does is it doesn't process the script until and provide the output to the screen until the script is ran from beginning to end. Okay, basically it sticks all the output in a buffer and doesn't release it until the script's done running. So to turn on output buffering, it's just called OB start, and then an open parent and a close parent. That's turning on output buffering. Okay. Now here's what happens when we turn on output buffering. I'm going to go back to my login page, And remember before where I had my title, I had it the second thing down, and then and so it wasn't defining my title properly. Now it should. So I'm going to take my title and I'm going to put it down below the include here. And I'm going to save this file and I'm going to run it again. Well, that was odd. That's very strange. Alright, not sure why that's happening. I don't know if that's a new version of PHP doing that or what. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and set that back to like it was, and then it won't be an issue. Alright, so anyways, we have our title, we are including our template, and now we should have a title here. Alright, so we have our email address, our password, we're showing that our title is login. Okay, so this next thing that we need to do is in the footer. It's at the very end, right after this closing HTML tag. You do a new, again, no spaces, do a new open PHP tag, and then just type in obn flush. ob underscore and underscore flush, open parent, close parent. And what this does is this flushes the buffer. Sends the contents of the buffer to the screen and then exits basically. Cleans out memory, all that kind of stuff. Alright. So that is pretty much how you do a templates basically, or external files. It's pretty easy. So all we need to do then is on every file that you might have here that doesn't use templating, you just go in and modify your file to use the templates. So for example, in this register file, this is still just like it was earlier. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into the top of the file for everything from the doc type down to H2 here where it says register form. I'm going to blow that out. And then after the form, so the body and the closing HTML tags, I'm going to blow that out. And then I'm going to copy the code that I had from my login page and paste it on the top, and then down on the bottom, stuff that changed, I'm going to paste this. The only thing I'm going to change at all here is instead of login, I'm going to call this register. Okay, and then I'm going to right click and go format and kind of clean everything up a little bit. Alright, so in a nutshell, that's how you use external files. Let's go check to make sure this works. Okay, looks good. Alright, now our next thing that we need to do is this. We need to make sure that our scripts also process the forms as well, is display them, because right now all we're doing is we're displaying a form, but we're not really doing anything else. So we need to change this. Now your chapter does a pretty good job starting on page 204 and ending on 209. That shows you exactly how to process the file, the form in the file in the same, the form and the processing in the same file. That's what I'm trying to say. Alright, so here's what we need to do. We need to open up a either the login or register. I'll go with the login page here, and we're going to change a little bit, a few things here. Let's go ahead and first you have an open PHP tag on the top and a closing PHP tag on the bottom. Okay. What we can do here is we can start to strip out some of these excess tags because we no longer need them. What I'd like to do is put some spaces between where it says login form and in my form here. And there we go, add some spaces. Next thing I need to do is delete this closing tag on the top and the open PHP tag here in the middle. Don't need them anymore. Now this is going to cause some issues temporarily for my login form, but that's okay. What we're going to do is we're going to type this in. Right here it says H2 login form. We're going to do a couple of quick print things here. I'm going to type print and then open quote, the login form, close quote. Okay. Now, because that's always going to print. And then underneath here for the form action login.php, I'm going to say print, and again an open quote at the bottom where it says form, do a close quote, and then semicolon. Okay. So what that's actually going to do is that's going to print out the login form. Now here's one thing that we can do real quick to make sure that these two pieces here are working properly. One, I don't have any red notification areas here, so that's a good sign. But I want to go ahead and run the login script again over here. And what you'll see is basically nothing has changed from your perspective when you're viewing the file. It's just printing stuff out to the screen. That's what we want for right now. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to print some introductory text. Okay, and that's what this guy is. Then I'm going to put in another comment right above the form where it says print form. I'm only going to print that form if I need to, which I'll show you here in just a second. Now, so we're going to print our intro text. The next thing we're going to do real quick is we're going to look to see if this form's been submitted. Okay, because by default, this is what our form looks like. If I click login, then it shows that it basically what we want it to do is once you click that login, we want the script to check to see if the form's been submitted through the post method, and if it has, then we want to process the form. Okay, so here's how you do it. We're going to say if underscore server request method. This is on page 206. Is post. Yeah. So if the server request method is post, here's what I want to do real quick. I just want to print out something like this. I'm going to print on an H3 size heading that just says once I learn how to type here, in all caps that says form submitted. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to continue to process the form, but this will help here. Alright, so the form has not been submitted, but once I click login, okay, I made a rookie mistake right here. For when it says right here for form action login.php, you need to set the method to post. Scratch my head on that for a second, and it's probably because I'm so used to typing a method post when I didn't notice it. Okay, anyways, where it says right here form action login.php, you'll add method as post. That'll already be in the completed code that I'm going to send to you, so you don't need to worry about it. But that's something, if you have an issue like that, you'll want to check. Okay, so what I did is I just put in some info and clicked login, and now I see where it says form submitted. So I know that my code is, my form is being submitted and it's starting to be processed. So here's what we want to do. I want to go ahead and delete this line that I just created where it says form submitted, and I want to, first off, I want to see if my I want to see if, to make sure that my password and my email address are not empty. Okay, so I'm going to say if we're not empty, if our if our email address is not empty and our password is not empty. Okay. Now, if those two aren't empty, then what I want to do is this. Initially, what I'm going to do is I'm going to test to make sure that they are that my email equals something and my password is something because it's a login page. But for now, I'm just going to print out something like this. Okay. And then I'm going to run my script and I'm going to check by putting just a letter in my email address and a letter in my password. It doesn't really matter. Okay. And what I should see is a message that says that my email and passwords are not empty, because that's what I want. That's what I'm checking for. But here's what I need to do in reality. I need to go ahead and run another if conditional inside of this one. It's called a nested conditional. And I'm going to say if my str to lower $_post email equals, let's go with, we'll say me at example.com. I'm going to say this. I'm going to go ahead and print out just something that says email address is good. Okay, this is just temporarily. Else print address is no good. Okay, I want to make sure, verify as I'm testing here that indeed what I'm looking for is this me at example.com, either lowercase or uppercase or a mix of each, doesn't matter, matches what I'm looking for. Okay, so I'm going to refresh my script here, and I'm just going to type in A for my email address, and I'm going to click login. It should say that email address is no good. I'm going to type in me at example.com, whatever I want for password, and it should tell me the email address is good. Okay, so now I know that my my email address is fine. The next thing I want to do is this. I want to check two things. I want to say, first thing I looked at to see if my address meets me at example.com, and my password is testpass. Let me break this up a little bit so it's easier to read. There we go. Um, I'll just leave the same messages for now. So I'm going to say me at example.com, password of testpass, all lowercase. Click login. It should tell me that my email address is good, but we're going to change these messages real quick here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to say you are now logged in, if it works. Okay, and if it doesn't log in, then we're going to just print out a error message. And that'll say this: the submitted email address and password do not match those on file. And then we'll just do a line break. And say go back and try again. Okay. So let's go ahead and run this. Okay. Good deal. Now, here's what another thing that we'll do is in part 2 of this video, I'm actually going to expand this and go through and finish up the error checking on this file, and then we'll go and build out the register file. So I'll be right back with part 2.